Okay, and good afternoon, everybody from Thailand. And hello, Angela. How are you?
Hello, Abel. I'm really well.
That's wonderful. I love your. I had to mention, I love the color of your shirt. It's very colorful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I felt very colorful today. So
Yeah, thank you, thank you. I tend to wear kind of boring outfits, like plain colored ones. Not much color. Maybe I'll change later on in the future. But to all of our guests, I just want to say thank you so much. I know it will take some time for you to join us because Facebook is informing you that I'm going live. But please allow me to introduce my lovely guest that I haven't met in person yet, just like many people that I haven't met during this period. But Angela is one of those gems that I met this recent, a few months actually. And I was actually on your podcast. It's called 52 Needs. Is that correct?
yes, yes.
Yeah. And I would recommend everybody to go to her YouTube page, 52 Needs, if you're interested in knowing what is the specific things that you like to share on your podcast. It's better that you share it.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, I like sharing things that are about emotions and needs and things that help you have a fulfilled life where you learn that whatever comes up for you, like immediate emotions, be they whether you're fulfilling your needs or not, is
Mhm.
actually a really useful thing. So that when you get angry, you don't get into this place of, oh, everything is terrible, but what is my anger telling me right now?
Right.
Or what is the purpose of my frustration right now? So that we can use what I call turn it into emotional productivity.
Right, exactly. And that's better known for many people that it's the emotional intelligence,
Mhm.
which is very, very important nowadays because we cannot allow our emotions and our mind to control us. We have to be aware of them. And it's
Yeah.
very, very hard. I mean, I kind of had a little issue yesterday also, going to a meeting, and I was frustrated because I was late to the meeting. And I don't want to blame anybody, but I don't like to be late for anything, and I found myself very frustrated and yeah, not in a happy space at the beginning of the meeting, anyways. So it is very difficult to always be aware of your
Mhm.
emotions, but we have to start somewhere, right?
Exactly. And
Right.
starting with emotions is a really good way because,
Yeah.
again, they will tell you if something's working or not.
Right, exactly. Now, I met Angela through a friend, and as all of you know that she is a emotional productivity coach. But Angela, I would rather have you introduce yourself to everybody in a brief way, better than me trying to, articulate all the things that you are, so capable of doing.
Okay. Well, I have a checkered background. Let me put it this way. I was born in Germany, but I have lived in 9 different countries. I have worked in 16 and I've traveled in over 50 countries. So I have worked in,
Oh,
before I started working as a coach 25 years ago, I was a TV producer. I was an event organizer. I ran a business in Hong Kong for a number of years. I was a teacher. I did a researcher. So I've done a lot of different things, but being a coach is what I love doing best, and supporting people and being a great leader. And for me, leadership starts with self-leadership
yeah.
and having really fulfilling connections with self and with other people, and creating a life that's really fulfilling and worthwhile living. That's what I'm passionate about.
Well, that's
And that's
perfect.
what my clients get it.
That's perfect. And I remember the first time I spoke to you, I realized that you're one of those people that if you open your mouth, I'll listen to you. And I tend to be, very picky in who I choose to listen to, because I do think that I have my own, skills and talent and experience. But I also know that not everybody out there is deserving of my time and my respect. And I'm not trying to be egotistic here. It's just that there are so many people out there, and I have to be very choosy who I choose to listen to. And you're one of those people that I know immediately that, okay, she has a lot of experience and she has done a lot more things in her life. And you're somebody that I definitely want to learn from. And some of the questions that I want to ask you today, based on the theme. Of course, your theme is to talk about the importance of extreme self-care, which I'm sure you're going to link into some of the questions that I want to ask you as well. But for all the viewers out there, let me please remind you again that my podcast is called You Are Able. So everything is under this big theme of You Are Able. And I like to talk to people and pretty much pick their brains and ask their stories about what have you done that you have overcome a challenge. Like, how have you overcome something? What have you done, for example, in the past 2 years during COVID that allow you to adapt, change to the environment? And perhaps there is something that is from my guests that can help the viewers out there, whether you're going to watch on YouTube, on Facebook, or on Instagram. I just want to say thank you so much. And I'm going to go straight ahead now into my first question because I want to keep this 30 minutes. And Angela is very busy and a talented woman. I do not want to take too much of her time as well. Now, Angela, like I said, like she said, she is a coach and have extensive experience of 25 years. What I wanted to ask you, Angela, is that I know that you have done a lot of coaching in the past and you have been a very effective coach. Now, can you tell me some of the techniques that you use to help your clients?
That when you sent me that question, I was like, oh my God, where do I start? Okay.
just a few, yeah.
Okay. So basically the first one that I do with clients is a lot of people come and they say, when I say, so what brings you here? And they say, I don't want this anymore, or I don't like that, or I never want to have this any again, or whatever it might be. So we often know what we don't want.
Right.
And so the first thing I do is I say to people, so what do you want to do instead? Or what do you want to have instead? Who do you want to be instead? Right. And a lot of people will then still come back and say, I don't want this anymore. And the example that I generally give people is to say, okay, imagine you are programming your GPS. You have your phone in front of you and you say, hey, Siri, or, Apple, or whatever it might be. Oops. And here Siri goes on. Thank you, Siri. No.
Turn off
she
now.
Says, I'm not sure I'd understand. Thank you, but no, thank you. So when you say, please don't take me to Sydney, guess where you will end up?
Right.
You will end up in Sydney because the only thing the system hears is Sydney. They hear the destination. The brain does not hear, and the brain is just like that. The brain doesn't hear the word not. So if you say to somebody, I don't want to be frustrated anymore, or I don't want to get angry anymore, or I don't want to be triggered by this anymore, what you have to do is you have to actually imagine that. So it's about replacing that image with what you want to have instead. And that can be challenging for some people. So that's where I start. It's by getting really clear with people, what do they want and how do they want to feel when they get there, so that they can use the emotion as the autopilot. It brings you back on. So if you're starting to feel frustrated, you know that you're off target. You're no longer flying towards your airport, which is what I use, or you're getting towards your destination.
I hear this very frequently. And, for example, like from the Secret book or the law of attraction, you have to imagine what it is that you want and you feel. Is that similar, or is that exactly what it is, or is that different?
I'd say it's probably the same, except that I still expect my clients that if they want to climb a mountain, that they actually do the climbing. Yeah. Sometimes when you read, the law of attraction, there seems to be this thing of, once I get very clear on what I want, all I have to do is sit at the bottom of the mountain and then, I will transport myself magically to the top of it. Right. That's not that for me, it still means you need to do the work, because for me, coaching is also, yes, you change who you are, but you change who you are by doing things. You're not going to learn to be a great mountain climber by visualizing climbing a mountain. You need to learn how to do it. If you want to go to Sydney, you need to learn the route to get there. You need to follow, you need to be able to learn how to drive a car or get on a plane, whatever it might be. You need to actually get yourself there and learn the skills. And so in that regard, it's not wishful thinking. It's just about getting really clear on where you want to go.
Right. And if I may add, before I, start going into the next question, is that I had a similar experience where I was asking myself, what is it that I don't want? in my life anymore.
Mhm.
And it was always about what I didn't want. And I guess my awareness grew because I was actively seeking. And at that time, I didn't have a coach yet. I didn't acquire a coach after that period, but I was actively seeking how to relieve myself from the suffering that I essentially my mind was creating, because I was repeatedly creating and keeping the memories of the past alive in my mind, and then allowing that memory to continue to hurt me in the present moment. And that actually strengthens my ego identity, right? Because our ego needs an identity, and mine was the victim identity, which I was so great at playing. I mean, I loved, and I said loved, not love, I loved playing the victim mentality because I was always the victim, right? And it's just so much easier. But to actually want to go to a coach because you're aware that you don't want something, and ask the coach to guide you and help you and be your mirror. Such like Angela is a emotional productivity coach. I am a communication coach. Different coaches can help you to head a certain way. But just like you said, after I was aware of what it is that I didn't want, I had to get very, very clear as to what do I want to feel now, which is no more heaviness, no more anger, no more explosions, none of that. And then it took a long time. It took a lot of work. It really took a lot of work, especially when you don't have a coach. So I do recommend that you get a coach because this is your personal growth, your personal development. And it's worth every penny, whatever, the real ones, of course, the real coaches. And now let me head to the next question I want to ask you. This is something that I ask all my guests. In the past year and a half, 2 years, because of obviously COVID changes, many people have to adapt because they lost jobs or they had to change jobs. They became entrepreneurs. They have to change the type of business that they do as entrepreneurs. Have anything been changed for you in your field? Have you branded yourself differently? Have you changed your mindset about how you live your life? Or, I mean, was there any big changes with you in a personal and even business life in the past year and a half?
Okay, so basically you probably remember this, that I had until, 3 years ago, I had lived pretty much out of a suitcase. I had literally lived out of a suitcase for 4 years, where I didn't even have a home. I lived shared between apartments and hotels and Airbnbs. And then even though I had settled down in a house, I was still doing a lot of traveling. And because my clients were all over Australia and New Zealand, and, so I decided that I didn't want to do that anymore. And I had, the year before COVID, I had started transitioning into an online space. I had told my clients that I was no longer going to go around and visit people in the offices, but that I was doing the sessions online. And so that I had already laid the foundation for all of that. And I had created my first online course as well. So that when COVID happened, I had that ready. But of course, the first thing that goes in a lot of companies is training and the budget for training and coaching. So what I did is I focused on supporting people who were going through all these changes. Because I have been working with remote teams for a long time. I mean, I've been coaching people all over the world for a long time. So I have clients in Singapore, in Thailand, in Germany, in the United States.
Right.
But what happened during COVID was that a lot of teams all of a sudden were doing work in such a way that they didn't know how to deal with the changes, with the remote work, with the cultural differences and all of that. And I had never really focused on that before. But with COVID, I developed courses that were about how to manage change, how to work from home, and coach people through all of those challenges as well. Because there were a lot of leaders who were just lost because they were used to having people in front of them, and people were used to having teams and brainstorming and, having the chats by the water cooler, and none of that was happening anymore. So that was where I felt that I could contribute. And that was good work. I really enjoyed that. And I'm still doing it.
Well, it's very smart. I mean, you were also very, very lucky to have everything set up before COVID hit. And I wish I would have, had that, but I am trying to scramble into that as well. And I totally agree with you. More than ever, I had people contact me and ask me to ask me to coach them, groups and companies and university students, etc., on how to connect online.
Mhm.
Because some of the staff that I was coaching from companies, they have never met their team members in person.
Yes. Yeah.
And it could start if you are starting a job and you're just staying at your home and you're doing everything on the computer. It's quite challenging because you don't necessarily know or feel that you have like the physical support there. So it's very different. I mean, we can have another talk about this separately.
Yes.
And let me ask you this, which is not the next question. If you are traveling so much, and obviously you have learned to take care of yourself, under the topic that you picked, what is some tips that you want to share with the audience about the importance of extreme self-care, especially with all of your traveling, running around, being a very competent and successful coach? How have you learned to take care of yourself?
Okay. So I use the word extreme self-care very deliberately, because self-care for a lot of people is just get enough sleep, drink enough water, eat enough food, or not too much. For me, that means that you actually have to be a little bit more specific than that. The quality of the water that you drink makes a difference. Right. The quality of the food that you drink. Sugar. I know that sugar and I do not have a very good relationship. And a lot of people don't really think about that where you can find sugar. Sugar is hidden in all sorts of different foods and has so many different, over 60 different words for sugar. Mm-hmm. And, for me, self-care also means that I connect socially, that I make sure that I have the affection and the, not just the business connection, but also the friendships and the love and all of that. But also the time alone when I need to replenish myself. Because I always say you can't pour from an empty jug. Right. And so it's about finding out, and this is why I'm doing the 52 needs as well. What is it that's really important to you? We don't think about that. And when crisis hits and we go into survival mode, what we get is we become very resentful. Because we don't know what's important to us, and then we react. Yes. So self-care means you know what matters to you, you know what's important. And I definitely I've always been aware of that for a very long time. But right now, I really know. I will say, you know what? I really need to have a weekend all by myself, which is ironic because I live by myself. Most of my interaction is on Zoom, but I will have to have a day where I don't speak. I don't talk to people. And some people need to have lots of talking with someone, right? So it's about really find out what works for you. So that's something that I really recommend to people. Find out what you need. Right. I actually work with another coach from South Africa who has a test. Actually, I work with several coaches, and one is a lady named Artie, and she has a specific test that she works with on finding out what is your needs. Actually, just when you say 52 needs, what is it that you need or what is it that you're great at? So that's something that if anybody's interested or watching, I can connect you with her. And there are actually other. You can call them, they're not exams, excuse me, that's the wrong word that came up in my head. They are like tests, I guess, that helps you. And I'm sure, Angela, you have many as well. And I just did one, the Myers-Briggs, with another coaching company that I am going to work with in Malaysia. And I found out some very interesting about myself, even though I feel I'm quite aware. So there's always room to learn more about what it is that you want or need. Especially when you feel really lost, you definitely should think about like, okay, how am I going to walk my next step? And perhaps that is to, look into some of these tests to see what are you great at, instead of following what society expects of you, or maybe even what your parents, because sometimes we go into our life paths not solely by ourselves because we don't live alone, right? So there are influences from our lives that comes in. And then once in a while, like
this period where the universe is really pushing you to become very aware of yourself, maybe this is the time to really go back into what do you really like, not what other people want for you, but what do you really love, and try to go for that.
And now, differentiate between what you desire and what you really need.
Yes, exactly. Yes. What do you need and what do you want?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And do you have any advice for people who are looking to become coaches or looking to start their own businesses? As a very experienced entrepreneur yourself, what would you recommend to anybody who is new to coaching, or perhaps new or less than 5 years as an entrepreneur?
I would recommend to people to network, meet as many as people as possible. And again, it's a lot of people tend to go and meet other coaches, which I think is wonderful. I love networking and mentoring and doing all of that with coaches. But you also need to go outside of that. And there are lots of business networks available. So find out what your niche is.
Right.
Don't be a coach for everything.
Right.
I mean, I have been coaching for 25 years. I think there are probably not that many topics I haven't coached on, but I don't brand myself on, I can coach you on anything. I support you with leadership. I support you with emotional intelligence,
Right.
with life skills that we generally take for granted, and cultural intelligence. So those are my topics. Right. So find out what you work on, and don't be afraid to actually go. Feel that when you think that you're too tight, you're probably just right. Because there's this, we're tight in how you've defined yourself, your area of work. That this might be too small. It's probably not, because you can't serve everybody. Right. So focus on that. Learn about those topics. Train yourself. And the important thing is get your own coach. If you don't have your own coach, as a coach, you need one.
Yes, I totally agree. I totally agree with that. I actually learned a lot from my coach, because I contacted a wellness coach, but she was more a holistic wellness coach, which is the way that I choose to heal myself. And I learned so much about the way she supported me, the way she spoke to me, the way I'm not a hypnotherapist, but maybe in the future I would like to become one, the way she hypnotized me. And then the full process of, how many sessions I had with her? I think I had 8 sessions total, which is not little. I had 8 sessions with her, and you can see your own progress. And this is not something that I necessarily need to explain to any particular person, but it's very, very interesting if you are interested in becoming a coach, is that you get somebody to coach you so that you understand at least one coach's style, because you're not going to be copying another person's style. You have to have your own. But it's very important also to understand the whole process of how, as a coachee, how is it for you to go through that process. I think she helped me to gain more confidence as a coach as well. And I'm not the same coach as her. I'm not a wellness coach. I am a specific presenter and communications coach, because I have my experience as a presenter and TV host. So I'm not a life coach. I'm not an executive coach. I just want to make that very, very clear for everybody. And Angela, I know you have seen a lot of people. I think we spoke about this last time in your podcast, 52 Needs. And I have heard so many people calling themselves coaches now. And I know I started my coaching in 2017 because I actually had somebody come up to me at a conference that I was hosting, and they asked me to coach them. So I did call myself a presenter coach a while back, even though I did not promote myself as a coach. But all of a sudden during COVID, everybody can be a coach. And it's a little bit scary. I don't know what is the word. It's just kind of like a little bit like, oh, wow. How come all of a sudden so many people are coaches? And what are their qualifications? Did they just take a class, or do they actually have life experience? How would you weed out the I don't even know if there are real coaches and fake coaches, because, for example, let me say this: I do not have any certification, and I proudly say this because I have life experience, and you can see all my experience on stage and all of that in front of the camera. It's all recorded. So I do not have any certification like NLP, things like that. I know you have a lot of certifications. So would I be considered to somebody, if I do not have a certificate, to be, oh, she's not a real coach, she doesn't have certification? How would you weed out the real coaches from the coaches who actually need to become better human beings, and not better human beings, I'm sorry, that's another wrong word, to have more life experience and not just like take a course and then become a coach? How would you recommend for the people?
Well, I would definitely say that a coaching course is useful, but a lot of people get stuck on doing a 5-day coaching course and then call themselves a coach.
Right.
For me, the difference between what you call the real and the fake coaches is, have they developed themselves? Are they working on themselves? Do they have their own coach, as I said before?
Right.
And are they willing to stretch? Are they, and again, if you are, as you said, you're not a life coach, you've got life experience, but you're branding yourself as a communication coach because that's where you have your experience and your professional experience as well. You are a presenter. You have trained yourself in doing that. So you know what you're talking about. You're not branding yourself as a let's conflict resolution coach or whatever it might be.
Okay.
Focusing on what you do. But I have come across people who have literally done a 5-day generic coaching course or have had no experience whatsoever and just decided that they were going to brand themselves. I have had, and I don't know if I've shared this story before, but I always like when people come to me and say, how can I become a better coach? How do I become a coach? I like supporting people that way. And I had one young man who came to me and said, would you be willing to talk to me about becoming a coach? And I said, absolutely. And he said, well, I'm about to do this 5-day coaching course. And I said, okay, have you done any other coaching? And he said, no. I said, have you ever had a coaching session? No. Have you ever, no self-development, no coaching, never had a coaching session before. I said, so what do you want to be? And he said, a life coach. And I said, so what do you think qualifies you for being a life coach? And he said, well, I've run a business. And I said, well, okay, so you want to be a business coach? No, life coach. So I said, okay, so how are you with dealing with issues around on a high level basis on health, relationships, spiritual things, career, all of those things that are connected, that somebody will come to be with you. And he said, no, I haven't really not read anything about that. And I said, well, how about you have a look? And you can see I've got quite a few books behind me. I've been reading, I read about 2 to 3 books a week. And I said, well, let me show you. These are the things that, if you wanted to talk about relationships, it would be this. I'm not an expert in child rearing, but you need to have at least some idea of what it takes to raise a child. And some ideas of theories, and have a look at this. And I walked him through, and he was stumped. He had not anticipated that you needed to have at least some ideas of what tools and models and some sort of background was necessary in order to help people. And even though coaching is helping people find their own answers, when somebody is completely in the dark, saying the light switch is somewhere over there is not going to work. You actually have to guide them there.
Yeah.
And for that, you need to have some tools.
Yes, I totally agree with you, because when you talk about dark and light, as a coach, you have to go through the experience of being in the dark and walking through it, whether alone, with help of your family, or with an actual coach. You actually need to know how, so that at least you have your own experience. And then, like you said, support it with doing other coaching sessions, or learning different models of how to help other people. Because not everybody is going to be able to go through the same dark path as you as well. So minimum, you need to have your own life experience of the personal development. right? And I think it's great that he wants to help people to become a as a
Absolutely.
coach. But definitely it's very, very important as well to know that, well, how are you going to do it?
Yeah.
What are the methods? What are the best ways, right?
Yeah. And the importance is to say, as you said, what has worked for me does not necessarily work for another person. So that's why I learned several toolkits and learned how to guide people through that. Because if you go in with, oh, you've got that problem, let me tell you how I've solved that, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Are you all right? Drink some water first. It's okay. We can just, I totally agree with that. And that's why I don't even dare. I would not dare to call myself a life coach, even though I remember you asking me, and you shared the story with me the last time we had a meeting. You were asking me, so do you want to be a life coach? I was like, I don't know if I have enough life experience to be a life coach, even though I know that I'm an old soul, and I know that I do understand a lot of things, but I'm still, when I'm still going through, for example, my own difficulties in life, I do not feel comfortable enough or confident enough to help another person as a life coach. So that's why I am being very specific and just sticking to presenter and communication coaching, because I'm excellent at that. I'm very, very good at that. And I just want to keep it as that. And before we close, because time is already flying, it's already half an hour. Before we close, is there anything that you would like to share with the audience? Because people are going to see this on Facebook, on LinkedIn. I'm going to get a clip of this on Instagram, and it's going to be on my YouTube channel. So people will watch this in the future. Is there anything specific that you want to say, how people can find you, a story, a quote, whatever it is that you'd like to share, please?
Okay, well, the first thing is, again, since we were talking about extreme self-care, no matter whether you're a coach or not, take care of yourself first. You can't pour from an empty jug. That's always important,
Right.
especially when times are difficult. So you can't help other people if you can't help yourself. And then if you are, and again, whether you're a coach or not, we are very good at trying to fix other people's problems. So my invitation would be, the average person listens for 17 seconds before they actually make a suggestion. And that's not a long time. So my invitation would be, learn how to ask questions and help people find their answers. As I said, sometimes you have to provide people with answers, but a lot of the times just having, being a sounding board and asking questions in a different way will help people much better, because it's much, much more effectively. It's the equivalent of, teaching somebody how to fish rather than giving them a fish.
Right.
So that was, again, be there for other people, but don't be there at the cost of yourself.
That's a very beautiful way to explain it. And if I may also add again, when you are learning to help other people, or when you are helping other people as a coach, actually the most important skill is listening and empathy. And what I find is that if you have things in your mind and you're eager to reply, then you're not really listening, because you're just eager to share your point because you want to help them. It's good intentions, okay? It's good intention, but you are not able to see clearly. And I believe that I can see it within myself as well. When I have an ego and I'm not empty, my mind is not empty, or I have this strong ego that I have to reply this, I have to win this, then that's not the good state to be in to help others or to be a coach. I actually have to get myself into a very, very calm, non-judgmental state, because the minds do automatically judge. And I'm not going to pretend that I don't judge. I'm still human. Okay. So I still judge, I still stereotype, and I still do all of that. It's just that how do I control it and to be aware of it and to lessen it so that I can improve myself. But when you're coaching other people, it's very important to try to get yourself into that, like you said, sounding board. To be a sounding board, you need to be very grounded, but and to be able to absorb other people's energies, or at least understand it, so that you can listen, and then so that you can guide them. It's not always about, oh, did you do this yet? Or did you do this yet? Or did you do this yet? It's so what did you think about that? It's like, oh, so what do you think about, like it's a lot of helping them to reflect as well, so that they can make their own decisions. I mean, that's my experience. I'm sure you have a lot more to share on top
Well,
of
the important thing is just to recognize that as a coach, you may see that something would be really good for a person, but the person may not see it that way.
Right.
Now, you can go in ego and tell the person that this would be a really good thing, or you can offer it as a suggestion and then expect that the person is not going to take you up on it.
Right.
And again, a lot of, you don't, sometimes coaching is not a one session thing. It's something where that develops over time.
Right.
And it's having the patience with people. And I know this I used to go into, okay, we're going to do this. My goal is to make myself redundant so you can do this on your own. But cutting off people too fast by giving them the tools that they may not be able to actually use is also not a really good thing. So it takes some self-awareness, as you said, when does the ego kick in? When does the judgment kick in?
Yeah.
And the ability to support people in the way that they need to be supported.
Right. And to be honest as well, to be very honest with yourself as well, because the thing we talked about last time on your podcast, when I was your guest, is we talked about honesty.
Yes.
And if you also feel that you don't need to improve, you don't need to change, even though a coach actually recommends something to you, it's recommended that you consider it. Yeah. You don't have to decide right away, because I know, and I'm sure you know as well, how long it takes for somebody to really dig deep and to improve themselves, because it's a very hard path. It's actually much more difficult than blaming and to distract and to let's go shopping and let's watch Netflix, or whatever it is that distracts us from working on ourselves. It's much easier to do all of that, but to work on ourselves towards growth, or whatever you want to call it, enlightenment, is much harder. So it takes a lot of inner strength, and then the coach is also there. Are also there to help guide you. So yeah, there's so many things, and I'm learning so much too from just speaking with you, Angela. And I just want to say thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time. I want to talk with you more, but of course, audiences always have a shorter attention span. It's good to keep it at half an hour, and I just want to keep it at half an hour now. And thank you so much once again. I hope to, and any of the audience who have questions, you're most welcome to ask us the questions on the Facebook or even on YouTube. And I will make sure that I have all of Angela's contacts in the description in YouTube, so that you can contact her if you would like to work on your emotional productivity. So thank you so much. I'm going to stop the recording now.
Thank you.